You've heard it a million times, right? Honesty is the best policy. It's one of those foundational things we're all taught, and for good reason. But today, we're going to flip that old saying on its head and look at it in a completely new way.
All right, let's dive right in, because this question is everything. What if the most powerful move you could make isn't puffing out your chest about how strong you are, but being radically, brutally honest about where you're weak? It sounds like a total paradox, I know, but stick with me, because unpacking this changes, well, everything. So, to really get a grip on this, we first have to look at a pattern that is so human. It's that massive gap between what we intend to do and what we actually end up doing. And there's a powerful story from way back that just nails this perfectly.
Okay, so picture this. The people of Israel are newly free, standing at the foot of Mount Sinai. God lays out his covenant with them, and their response is immediate. It's enthusiastic, and it is 100% sincere. They all shout, "All that the Lord has spoken, we will do." And you can tell they mean it with every fiber of their being.
But that commitment, as passionate as it was about to run headfirst into reality. And we're not talking about a lifetime or even a year. In just 60 short days, that heartfelt promise would be completely shattered.
And here we see it. In a shocking turn, they're bowing down to a golden calf that they made themselves. I mean, talk about a complete 180. The gap between their promise and their performance is just staggering.
So you have to ask, what happened? Were they just lying before? Were those just empty words at the mountain?
But here's the twist. Sincerity wasn't the issue. The problem was much deeper. It wasn't a failure of willpower. It was a fundamental inability to live up to their own promise. They simply could not do the thing they genuinely wanted to do.
And let's be honest, this isn't just some dusty old story. It's a universal human struggle. The Apostle Paul articulated this exact same feeling centuries later. You know that feeling, right? Knowing the right thing, wanting to do it, and then somehow finding yourself doing the complete opposite? It's maddening.
Okay, so if trying harder and just gritting our teeth inevitably fails, what's the alternative? Well, this is the turning point. The key isn't to try harder, it's to embrace a kind of radical honesty.
And this radical honesty really has two parts. First, we have to admit defeat. We have to be totally honest about our own inability to pull this off, just like the Israelites had to be. And second, we have to shift our trust away from our own efforts and put it squarely on God's promise to do in us and through us what we can't.
And this brings us right back to that paradox we started with. See, God's promise isn't that we'll suddenly become strong enough on our own. It's that His strength is actually made complete. It's perfected right in the middle of our weakness. Our weakness becomes the very place where His power gets to show up.
Okay, but how does this exchange actually work? How does our weakness get swapped for His strength? Well, the whole concept is often called being alive in Christ, and it all hinges on the powerful idea of surrender. Now, the word surrender usually sounds like losing, right? Like giving up. But check out this incredible metaphor. This kind of surrender is about yielding your soul to God, and in return, He turns it into His fortress. He lives there. He defends it. So surrender isn't defeat. It's the ultimate strategic defense.
And it's so important to get this. This isn't a partial commitment. It's not about giving God a few parts of our lives while we try to manage the rest. This kind of surrender has to be total. All or nothing.
Theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer put it in these really stark terms. He said, "When Christ calls a man, He bids him come and die." Whoa, that sounds extreme, I know, but he's talking about dying to our self-reliance, our ego, our own efforts to save ourselves so that we can be truly made alive by Jesus.
The Apostle Paul actually breaks down the mechanics of this new life for us. On the one hand, you have the yet not I part, the death of that old way of striving. I am crucified with Christ, I no longer live. But that's not the end. The second part reveals the new reality, the but Christ part. Christ lives in me. The life I live is by faith in the Son of God. It's a total exchange.
So where does all this lead? This path of honesty and surrender isn't some impossible tightrope walk we have to perform perfectly. It actually leads us to a final, powerful assurance, the promise of completion.
And this is the promise that anchors absolutely everything. It tells us that the person responsible for starting this work of transformation and for finishing it is the same person, and it isn't us. God, the one who begins the work, pledges to see it all the way through to completion.
And that right there is where true confidence comes from. It's not in our own ability to perform or to keep our promises or to be strong enough. Our confidence is in God's unbreakable promise to finish what He started in us. Our success depends entirely on His power, not our own.
And so this brings us to our final thought to take with you. If this is true, if the final outcome is guaranteed by God Himself, how might that change the way we look at our own failures, our weaknesses, and the struggles we are facing right now, today?